Hi, and welcome back to a podcast above a convenience store where my name is Joe Fremming. With me is Paul Muad'Dib. You may know us from the Joe Down and Cast That Movie. We are the two weirdos from those respected organizations that, like David Lynch, our other side halves do not.
No, they do not.
So last week we covered Twin Peaks the pilot, kind of gave like our background with it. And we're going to continue that on as we go into episode 2 and 3 this week. Episode 2, which is technically called episode 1 because, David Lynch likes to sign away rights to
everything.
So it traces to nowhere and Zen or the skill to catch a killer, which would be episode 3.
Which I think we'll both agree is probably our favorite episode.
It is the money shot episode. This is the episode to me that, and we'll get into it, but it really expanded my imagination as a child.
Yeah, mine too. And I'm looking forward to hearing how it addressed you and what you liked about it and how it affected me. A couple of things before we begin, and Joe will know this because I have to do this in the beginning of basically every Cast This Movie where we talk about omissions, corrections, because it's what we do. We make mistakes on our podcast. We left out a couple of characters when we talked about the pilot. We left out Josie. We didn't really get to Hawk, I don't think, a whole lot. We didn't talk about Catherine. And, and Joe, we kind of talked a little bit before we started the podcast. We both kind of agree that's really the B plot characters that, as the things go on, they're not as important, even though they're in the pilot.
Yeah, I mean they're not even B plot; they're almost like C and D plot. Because when I think of B plot, I think of like the teens, like Donna and Bobby, and Audrey. These are like the secondary characters. Third would be like Big Ed, Nadine,
Norma.
But then when we get into Josie, who legend has it that role was written for Isabella Rossellini.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Allegedly, but she does look, the style of Josie does look a lot like Isabella Rossellini, the short cropped hair and all that.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think she wanted to do television, or that might have been toward the end of her and Lynch's romance or whatever. I'm not entirely sure, but that's the legend has it. But these characters that I don't really care about. I know people listening to this who are Twin Peaks fans might think that's sacrilege. I'm going to be nothing but honest here. I don't care about Catherine Martell. I do care about Pete.
Yes, I love Pete.
Pete's important.
Mm-hmm. Pizza, I love Pete. And Pete's important. I would agree with that. And it's a shame because we both like Piper Laurie.
Yes.
I just watched a movie with her. And actually, even Mrs. Briggs, didn't realize she was the mom in Tremors. Love her. Why I never put those two together.
Wasn't she also, she was the mother of the baby in Eraserhead?
Yes. So, she constantly is just built for that mother role, which she nails. So I apologize. I'm taking sips of damn fine coffee while we're doing this and partaking in smokes because we're going to talk about Twin Peaks. I have to do both of those things. So we mentioned on our pilot, we talked about this underlining current of what was going on in our lives, right, Joe, with the Jacob Wetterling investigation.
Yeah, and it kind of mirrors it a lot, and I think it is kind of, for me, it just kind of overlapped, and it's just kind of so when I think of Twin Peaks, a lot of times I think about Wetterling and St. Cloud in 1989.
Oh,
it's just kind of all combined in that, and it's kind of weird now that we're adults. We kind of can look back. It's like, wow, there's a lot of weird similarities going on.
And this is something I really wanted to introduce our viewers to because we're talking about we are personalized with it, and I wanted to kind of bring up the timeline because, again, I did the math on this. Joe, I was 8 years old watching Twin Peaks. I was 8. And it was funny. I was rewatching the 2 episodes, and it says TVMA in the corner. And I'm like, really? This was on TV. But then I thought about it. I'm like, it was really progressive in 1990.
Well, they didn't have the ratings in 1990.
Mm-mm.
It's like when South Park was probably the show that made the TV ratings become a thing.
It had to be somewhere around that time, right? Like really when cable shows started to get really edgy, like South
Yeah.
Park. Yeah.
It might have been even Simpsons and Married with Children too, to an extent. But
So I'm just going to run down some quick timelines so you guys can kind of see some of the things that we were dealing with in the months prior to Twin Peaks being released and why this really hit me and Joe. So on Sunday, October 22nd, 1989, Jacob Wetterling was abducted. He was in a small town of St. Joe, which is about 75 miles northwest of Minneapolis. And he was leaving a convenience store with his friends on his bike, and he was taken. Now, Joe, I prefaced this privately with you that I was going to tell you a story that still to this day scares the shit out of me. October 21st, that's Saturday, me and my 2 sisters, one who's now passed away, were playing in our front yard, and a car was driving through our neighborhood that none of us had seen before and had stopped in front of our house 3 times to watch us play, whoever was in that vehicle. My mother came out and noticed this from watching us from inside the house. We're in the front yard, and made us go in and wrote down the license plate of the vehicle. It didn't match, or we didn't really have vehicles or the plates and things like that. But that is something that the very next day Jacob Wetterling was abducted. And I'll never forget those 2 days put together and just how much that actually terrified me, to the point where this is when I really got into video games. I didn't want to leave my house. My Nintendo was my escape to the outside for months because I was so scared to leave my house to go to school and not anything else.
holy crap, dude.
Mm-hmm.
That is frightening stuff.
Isn't it? Yeah. And I rarely tell that story because, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, whatever. But I swear on the lives of my kids and everything that I hold dear in my life that is exactly what happened. And it's something that when I bring up to my mom shuts down. Like, she's like, I don't even want to talk about it. Because I've had that conversation with her a couple of times, especially when it came out that they found out who did abduct Jacob Wetterling many years later.
Oh, jeez.
Mm-hmm. So that happened. Immediately, the search begins within minutes. The very next day, there was hotlines and things going on. They were getting thousands of tips, and most were crap. But the key thing is they found tire tracks and shoe tracks they thought were important. And then the next day, the FBI came into town and we're doing psychological profiles on the case. And we're helping the investigators and handle all the calls. On the 25th, they can't find anything. The sheriff of St. Joe comes out and says, he's dead. He's dead. This involved a sexual offender, we believe, based upon the FBI profile. And we think the abductor left the area. Well, remember how you and I weren't sure if this hit national news? On Thursday, October 22nd, it went on Current Affair. Whoa. And they were offering $100,000 rewards from businesses from Minneapolis and St. Paul on that Current Affair. And Rudy Perpich, who was our governor at the time, I don't remember Rudy, talked to the National Guard, and the very next day, the National Guard was activated to search a 700 square mile area for Jacob. I don't remember it being that huge. I
don't either. I think that stuff is, especially at our age, like 8 and 9, I think that's too big to really comprehend.
So I have to completely agree with you. Like, I don't think we realized the severity of it. Well, then a couple weeks later, November 6th, the sketch is released, and we'll get to that, I think, in our next episode on how that terrified us in Twin Peaks. The sketch, because I remember that sketch, and then there was a couple more that were released, and they were everywhere. You could not go anywhere in town without seeing those scary ass sketches.
And here's the thing too, which, in hindsight is like, once we found out who was behind it, how did not anybody be like, hey, that guy looks exactly like the sketch.
Right.
And he's creepy, and he lives by himself, and he collects children's clothing.
Right. So here's the thing. December 16th, they interviewed him. December 16th, they interviewed him. And the thing was that there was another assault that happened on the 13th. Totally different guy. But they thought they had new tips. But they interviewed this guy. And I'm going to leave his name out till we get to the point where we're going to reveal both, I think, Bob and who this guy was. If people are really interested, they can find it. Well, a month later, they interviewed him again and got his tennis shoe and got samples of his hair from the original scenes I talked about originally. They found these tire tracks and these shoe prints. Well, so up then Painesville comes out, which is another town within the area. It's not exactly close. And they confuse the shit out of the situation because their chief comes out and says there has been years of molestation out here, and we think it's this guy you're interviewing. No arrests were made. They linked this guy even back then. So they talk about this kid that was basically abducted by this dude. They did the tire tracks, but the tire tracks were consistent with the tracks that they thought they were going to be, but they weren't an exact match for the tire tracks, the Wetterling abduction. So apparently they had tire tracks from when this other kid was abducted in Painesville, or was attempted to be abducted in Painesville. And they matched it to the dudes that they were investigating. Still didn't arrest this fucking guy. They found fiber matches from the kid in Painesville in the dude's car. Still didn't arrest the guy. In February, the FBI is like, what the fuck is this? They take 6 agents off the case. They eventually, in February, after that happened, they do finally arrest Heinrich at the pushing of the FBI, but fucking release him with no charges. I said the name, I apologize, but we'll get in that. Well, then April 13th, which is the week episode 2 released, FBI's report that the shoe prints at the crime correspond to the shoes that were this dude's, but because there was insufficient detail, the lab examiner could not 100% say it was that guy's shoe.
Remember, this guy also had no alibi.
Nothing. So this is what's all been going on leading up to the week before, the in between, when we had the pilot and when we had this. And they come out and they say, we got this shoe print, it corresponds, but he's not our guy. So episode 2 drops, and we have FBI around town. We have all these things that are going around. Joe, how does episode 2 open up?
I just watched it today. Oh yeah, Cooper's hanging upside down. So this, I took a mental note. This is episode 2 is kind of where all like the classic quirks that people associate with Twin Peaks comes from. And that'll be the damn fine cup of coffee,
Mm-hmm.
and the percolator, just kind of like, I want to talk. It's way like amps up the quirkiness and tones down the seriousness that we got from the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
So Cooper is not as he's not as aggressive as he is in the pilot. His hair's longer. Everybody's hair is longer.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy what happens
Yes.
in 24 hours.
Yeah. Everywhere. I have a note of that. Cooper's hair is longer, and when we get to Audrey, Audrey's hair is way longer.
Oh yeah, Donna's is longer.
Mm-hmm.
I
So
still hate James.
I mentioned later about James. We'll get to him when we get to it, when he comes into the show. But one thing I wanted to point out too was that I never understood this debate, and maybe you can. I don't know if you felt the same way. People didn't think Diane was real. They thought it was just a name that he gave to his tape recorder. Now, I was 8 years old, very literal at the time, even though I had a wild imagination. It never crossed my mind that this guy was naming his tape recorder Diane. I always thought this was someone that he was sending the tapes to via mail. What was your take on him and saying Diane?
I thought he was recording to a real person because he asked Diane to mail him the earplugs in the pilot.
Right.
Because it's the Swedes or whatever are too loud.
No, the Swedes are later. It was the Norwegians. It was the Norwegians.
Yeah.
It was the
So,
Norwegians.
And that might have been in another episode, but he asked Diane to like mail him stuff and then take notes of things. So it doesn't make sense to me that she would just be kind of like him to just dump his thoughts into the void. I think this poor woman was taking all of Cooper's and Nan.
And he was neurotic as fuck, dude.
Sitting through these long ass tapes of Cooper talking about like his favorite pie and stuff.
Asking your questions about JFK and Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah. Well, that's also kind of a nod to what the pilot was with the Marilyn Monroe reference.
I caught that. That made sense to me for the first time. Like after our podcast yesterday and watching it today, I was like, oh, that makes sense. So yeah, so that's how it opened up. And you got this weird ass superhuman FBI guy running around. And then they cut to the diner where we get not the diner, but in the hotel food area where we meet Audrey with her long hair. And they do an immediate sexual tension between those two. I thought that was like instant click.
And, the innuendo is not lost when he's talking about the grapefruits being freshly squeezed when this young girl comes walking up to him and he's like, got a fear boner all of a sudden.
So the other thing I noticed as I'm watching this for the first time, like when I say I'm watching it for the first time, I'm really watching it, right? Like I'm looking at all the little things as we're doing this for this podcast. And there's a guy who is stage left of Cooper in a fucking bright ass Canada stocking cap that I could not take my eyes off that entire scene. It is, now that I've seen it, I will never unsee it. And now I'm pointing out to you, I guarantee you'll see it's the first time I've ever seen this dude. And he is as loud as the guy dancing in the school. Like, I don't know what the fuck Lynch was thinking about putting him in there, but it is so goddamn distracting once you see it. And I mean, it is just this ridiculous 80s stocking cap that's just bright red that says Canada right across the brim of it. And it is very like methodically positioned. So you see Canada written, like Lynch wanted you to see that. And I don't know why. But he wanted you to see it.
Yeah. Forget Audrey Horne Goes to Hollywood for Mulholland Drive. Where's the dancing guy, Canada guy spin-off movie we actually wanted?
Right? I just want to see them like in a place where he's just eating fucking bacon and pancakes and the dude's just dancing around. I think Lynch can make a 5-hour art project out of that. So then they cut to the share station and everyone is eating fucking donuts, dude.
Yeah. And I just want to point out, like, Sheriff Truman eats donuts really weird.
Yes, it was.
He just shoves like half of a whole donut into his mouth as Cooper's walking in. I'm sitting there, I'm like, who eats donuts like that?
Right. And I mean, they're fixing a light. They're cutting through all this stuff, which I just wonder if there was actually something going on there because they're constantly working on that. But that does come back to play later. And yeah, everyone's really eating donuts. And then you got Cooper comes in and just starts railing all this stuff off on Truman even before he has the time to swallow, right? His whole fucking donut.
Yeah, but he was also excited for the coffee at the Great Northern, and this is kind of like goes to the quirks of the show, the catchphrases, the things that people just they kind of put in and people latched onto it, and I think that was like a really really great way to hook people in.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that eventually is going to go off the rails into weirdness to the point where people were just really upset when the return came out and they didn't realize that they're not going to double down on damn fine coffee.
No, and I think I was going to bring this up, and I'll bring it up again. I'll say the same thing, but I read an interview or an article about the return, which is season 3, and someone said this is pure Lynch on heroin. Like this is a heroin dose of Lynch. Like this is the most amount of Lynch you will ever get out of a project, and I think that people didn't realize just how much Frost really was season 1, and how much they appreciated the Frost side more than the Lynch side.
Yeah, I think a lot of people confused the quirkiness to Lynch because he is a quirky guy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say a lot of this stuff was coming from Frost, but we do get the taste of Lynch further. We'll get into it when
we'll get into it. And it's brilliant when it happens. Like I see why those two work together so well, right?
Yeah. Yes, they complement each other amazingly well.
So then I think, again, remember I'm 8. Joe, I don't know how you're 8 or 9, and they start going through the lab report. Doc Hayward is going through the lab report, and we also forgot to bring up Ronette Pulaski,
yes,
which is important. Ronette Pulaski, towards the end of the pilot, she's seen walking across state lines. Well, I guess it's not towards the end. It's in the pilot, and this is what brings in the FBI because it went across state lines. Because apparently nobody knew that the FBI could just be called in and needed help. The FBI came in and Coop came in because she traveled across lines, which kind of gives you an idea whereabouts in Washington the Twin Peaks is supposedly set, where a girl can just walk a night and end up across the border. So they're talking about Ronette Pulaski. She's in a coma. She can't talk. They can't get any information out of her. And the thing that brought me up is, they didn't have a whole lot, but they make big emphasis that within 12-hour span, Laura Palmer had sex with at least 3 people.
Yes.
and I laugh at that because you know what it is now. Like you and I know what it is, and we know who she was having sex with.
Yeah.
Wow, Laura Palmer had secrets. They were kidding, yeah. and they're waiting on the tox lab. I just love that scene. Like Doc Hayward, the actor, Warren Frost, so good at his deliveries.
Yes, and another thing too is like her autopsy was a bunch of shallow like stab wounds, which is retconned in Fire Walk with Me.
Retconned hard.
That is retconned. But I mean, frankly, everything we're going to be talking about here is eventually retconned.
Right. But yeah, no, that's one of the things that I noticed that I remember too going, no, that's not how she died.
No, she did not die like with small little cut wounds or whatever. It's a lot more brutal than that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know which is worse, honestly.
I don't either.
I was thinking about that. I'm like, God, I mean, I kind of want to see that version of Fire Walk with Me because I bet that's brutal.
Oh, the murder scene in Fire Walk with Me is already brutal enough, man. That's just Jesus. But yeah, so it's that part's retcon. Doc Hayward, and he's sending out the toxicology report to see that Cooper is eventually right. She was also on cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
Also, she's like, average teenage, at least how I grew up, that's what teenagers are always, screwing around, doing drugs or whatever. So Laura's just like, it's shocking that she's the homecoming queen, but if you've ever been a teenager, it's not that shocking. Maybe the three guys thing and whatnot.
Right. Well, and the other thing that I noticed with it too was that he mentions at the end, he says, who would ever do something like this? And then there's the cut to Leo, and I'm like, red herring. Oh, that's so smart.
Yes. So they cut to Leo, and he's working on his truck, and he's being just a jerk, abusive. He's very abusive to his wife Shelly, and he's like, "You do the laundry," and she's like, "Yeah." She's about to head to work. He's like, "Wrong." He just throws like another bag of dirty laundry at her. And this is how much of a moron this guy is. He has a bloody ass shirt in his laundry bag that's important to him 10 minutes later, but not leading up to. So his whereabouts are unknown the night of Palmer's death. He was with her.
Right.
He has that bloody shirt. I don't remember. I'll have to rewatch Fire Walk with Me, but I don't remember him getting wonked by the kill.
No, it's not. No, it's not his blood.
It's not his blood. Okay.
It's not his blood. Nope. It was Jacques.
Okay. Yes. All right. So he has this bloody ass, like just really incriminating evidence. And this is what I do with the Joe Down. I nitpick and point out the comically weird things people do. She finds it, and then he's like, Norma is here. And then she just instead of putting it in the washer, she puts it in the drawer next to the washer. The most obvious spot.
And she doesn't put away she doesn't even close the drawer all the way. And I'm like, no. How does Leo not find this? And the other thing I have to bring up is, and maybe this is me being naive, but I know the climate in Washington State. There's snow. Who the fuck has a washer outside? Like, that takes a special cord, right? Like my washer and dryer have to go to I have specific outlets for it. Is this a thing? Is it that I don't know about, Joe? Do people put their washer and dryers outside their house?
Well, to me, it always seemed like Leo was still building the house while they were living in it, because it always looks like it's always like still being put together. You know what I mean? Like there's always like tarp on the floors. I don't know, but their washing machine's purposely outside, which would not make any sense, especially where this is near the Canadian border.
Right. Like there's no way that thing survived in the winters. Like that thing would be a rusted ass piece of shit and have to be. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, I get Shelley and Leo are supposed to be kind of the white trash of Twin Peaks, kind of living in that area, but at the same time, he's a hardcore drug dealer with a lot of fucking money. You could put the washer inside, bro.
Maybe it's just an excuse to beat her.
Oh,
you broke the washing machine. But Leo, what's outside? I got the bar and soap in the sock now.
This is the fifth time I've had to replace this thing that you broke. You broke it. So then after she stupidly puts the blood in the drawer, we cut to James getting interviewed, and my God, that forehead. James has a Beavis forehead, dude.
Yes, he even looks like Beavis. And look, the first time I watched the show, I didn't mind James. He wasn't a favorite of mine, but that song doesn't help later on. We'll get to that because I'm going to be raging about that.
You and I both, good sir.
But then season 2, again, it's not even a fault of the actor. It's just the poor writing. But God, he has like the largest story arc, and this everything about it is awful.
It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't build anything. It doesn't do anything. And yes, we're hard on James. And I say this a lot in Cast This Movie. We recast people and we do those things. And a lot of times it comes down to the writing and what they're given. It's not really anyone's fault per se of the actors. That said, we've seen actors that can go through some bullshit and come out looking clean. James is not one of those people. The actor,
It doesn't help.
no.
It doesn't help. He's not the strongest actor. I mean, I don't remember seeing him in anything besides B movies after Twin Peaks. Like he just really didn't have a career. James Marshall, I think his name is.
Yes, yeah, James Marsden, yeah, Marshall or Marsden or something like that. Yeah. He didn't. No, it's not Marsden. It's Marshall, I think. And yeah, he didn't have a career after Twin Peaks. But what surprised me, and and the other thing I want to bring up is they lie about the fucking necklace again, and this just puts Cooper on this path again. This is one of those things we talked about on the pilot. If they had just fucking told the truth about that goddamn necklace, Cooper probably could have been on a different track and gotten this solved much faster.
At least James he's not lying as much as Donna is to Cooper. At least he's like, yeah, I shot the video. Yeah, I knew Laura was doing cocaine. I wanted her to get off of it. He's sincere, but when it comes to the necklace, he just doesn't want to answer it.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know. I don't know. Oh, yeah. So, God, we're so mean. We're so callous. So then they bring him. Then they go to then it cuts to the next scene where it's it's Bobby and
Mike.
Bobby and Mike, who call each other Snake and Bopper, and they drop this.
It's never brought up again.
Yeah, it's never brought up again after this episode. These things are done, but yeah, it's like, come on, Snake. What? What? Especially when you find out what he goes on to be like in the return, you go, really, that guy had a nickname Snake? Okay, all right, fuck you. Yeah, they call each other Bopper and Snake, and they're called in, and it's stupid. It's just dumb. But I will say, the guy that played Bobby Briggs, Dana Ashton or Ashford was his name.
Dana Ashbrook.
He deserved a better career than what he got.
Yeah, he did like B-movie horror stuff. I think I've seen. Yeah, he wasn't a bad actor. I think a lot of people after Twin Peaks kind of struggled. They're kind of typecast, a lot of them.
Season 2 does not help anyone's career.
No, I mean that. But here's so we got Mike and Bobby. Mike's mad because Leo's calling at home because Leo is owed $10,000. Now I'm going to do this straight through. I'm going to do the Michael and Bobby stuff right here because there's a light shined later that we don't know as we're watching this, but Fire Walk with Me kind of gives us, there is a hint of danger to Bobby. You're watching this, you think he's, a loudmouth or whatever. So they owe Leo this money. They meet him. Is it the end of episode 3, or is it?
Yes. It's it is when they get out. I have it written down here. Yes. Yep. It is episode 3.
I want to do this thorough line. So they owe, because it's B plot. It's nothing really. I don't think we really need to overanalyze it, but they owe Leo a lot of money. $10,000. Laura has it in her safety deposit box, so they can't get it. I gave $10,000 to a cokehead is a mystery we'll never know. But
right.
They meet Leo in the woods because they're going to pick up a cutout football with cocaine in it, and Leo menaces them. And there's, I believe, eventually Jacques Renault's with Leo out in the woods. There's a scene in Fire Walk with Me that's a lot like this with Laura and Bobby. Bobby ends up killing a cop that night.
Yes, Bobby does end up killing a cop in Fire Walk with Me. Yes, absolutely does.
So I wanted to bring that because it's kind of like mirrors this part where Leo's like being he's like threatening Bobby and all that. Bobby's actually killed a guy. And not just a guy, he's killed a cop. So,
yes,
it adds a little more, gravitas to this character when I rewatch this. Because it's like, yeah, Leo's threatening, but, as far as we've seen, he's beating a helpless woman. He's not really, you don't see him stand up to people his size. Where Bobby, again, he's killed a cop.
Which is weird because then season 3 happens.
Yeah, he becomes a cop.
He becomes a cop in season.
I guess the Washington State Police Academy doesn't really look into the backgrounds too careful.
And I want to bring up, because now you're on this line, and I'm going to bring this up because I have this in my notes here. What I thought was really interesting was that Bobby's scared because, again, there's some retconning because Bobby's now more menacing because we know in Fire Walk With Me that he fucking killed a cop, and Laura's all fucked up during that scene too, and we'll get to that. She finds it funny, and Leo is threatening Bobby because he knows that Shelley is stepping outside the marriage and getting it on with someone else, and it's with Bobby, and Bobby's freaking out, and then Bobby's trying to bring up Laura, who Leo just banged the other night.
Yeah, and then he has no recollection of what happened, and we'll get to that when we talk about Fire Walk With Me.
Mm-hmm.
Whole thing, but
I just thought that was really interesting that, the dynamic between Leo and Bobby is they're fucking each other's girlfriends and neither one of them knew. And knowing what we know now, Bobby's the more menacing of the two.
Yes. Well, Leo, he starts off scary, but as the series progresses, he really gets glibbed to the point where it's comical how ineffectual he
Oh,
is.
God. Yeah, so that's a whole B plot. I'm glad we covered that now because I really don't want to have to cut back and forth. So the other thing I wanted to notice was they go back to that footage that James shot. And something that struck out to me again, because I was watching more intently this episode, this viewing than previously, was something that I think is lost now, and maybe it's because film is not as readily available as it was back in our time, or like the VHS recorders. Is that the quality of the footage they're watching really does look like a homemade video. You know what I mean? Like they went and got different film and shot with a completely non-camera to make that happen. And they cut to Laura's face and you hear her whisper, "Help me," which I thought was just a beautiful touch.
Wow, I've never heard the "help me" part, but yeah, that is.
Oh yeah, turn it up. You'll hear her whisper, "Help me," as it's dissolving to the next scene.
Oh wow, yeah. I even was watching with headphones on, and I missed that. Oh, you watch that? That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. So then they cut to this bullshit conversation between Donna and her mom about how she was really falling in love with James the whole time. And I just got to say, when I was watching that scene, I got emotional, not because of the scene, because the scene was trash. It's because of what happened to poor Laura Flynn Boyle. Like there's so much promise there. And I'm watching, I'm going, oh, fuck my life. Poor Laura Flynn Boyle. And for those of you that don't know, just Google it. I'm not going to get into the goddamn.
Yeah, Laura Flynn Boyle happened to Laura Flynn Boyle. To the point where I think she even turned down The Return.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which is like, she had nothing. Yeah, but she's instrumental with why we get later on John Justice Wheeler, because she's dating Kyle MacLachlan. And so Cooper.
Fucking Billy Zane himself shows up.
Yeah, so, yeah, this is going on. And this point, yeah, and then Donna's mom is the mother of Zoe Deschanel in real life.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, tidbit. But I also want to bring that because, I think it's around this time. Hawk is at the hospital.
Yes.
Polanski's mom. And we brought this up in the last podcast, how the one-armed man does not stand out to Cooper or Harry. At least Hawk is on top of that.
Right? And
he's like, this is weird.
And Hawk is the shit. I love Hawk. Hawk is fucking awesome. And yeah, he's like, one-armed dude, what the fuck is this? Like, he totally goes full on, like, profiling on this dude like, this is a one-armed dude hanging around ICU. What the fuck is this noise? And goes after him. But then just stops at the stairwell. And he goes in the stairwell. I'm like, I would have kept going, Hawk.
But this is also kind of like, it ties in like this Hawk scene, because I think it's either preceded or followed. We get hints of the Bookhouse Boys, which is not, we just get a hint of it, but Big Ed's talking to Harry.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing his patrol at the Bookhouse. Interesting choice of words. He's not a cop. And then like they do this, no scratch thing. So you see that there's something there that's like they're part of something, but we just don't know what yet. And then when James is let out, he says he needs the Bookhouse Boys' help. We don't really find out until later on in the series who and what the Bookhouse Boys are. It might even be the next episode or the episode after. But this is laying the groundwork that this is another little secret organization within Twin Peaks.
Yes, and I believe it's in episode 4 or 5 that we do get what the Bookhouse Boys is, and because it's revealed shortly before they go to One-Eyed Jack's, and then also in that scene is the first mention of Albert Rosenfield.
Yes,
and I just wrote down amazing.
We're snarky people, so Albert really speaks to us, and especially. Albert is the MVP in The Return for me on a lot of reasons, but most importantly in The Return is he's in the rain and it's coming down hard and he just says, fuck Gene Kelly. And it's one of my favorite things ever in Twin Peaks.
Albert is also one of my favorite characters for so many reasons. But yeah, the minute they brought that up, and this is also during that time frame when they're talking about when Jacques Renault is first brought up. Jacques Renault is first brought up. So then the scene cuts to a fucking C-plot with Norma and Nadine and the cotton balls. And the only thing of noteworthy that I wrote down on this one, and if you want to talk more about it, by all means, please do, was I noticed she said, I was up till 4 a.m. Well, my husband was in intensive care. And I went, wait a minute. So they release people within 7 hours of the intensive care unit in Twin Peaks? Like you could go from being in ICU to out in 7 hours in the town of Twin Peaks? Is that how your hospitals fucking work?
Especially he was drugged. He's not waking up within 7 hours. I mean, he got drugged by Jacques Renault.
Right? And we know Jacques Renault, he ain't using the fucking little shit, right? He's using the strong shit.
Yeah, Ed should have seen that, that giant blue pill in his beard. Like, fuck is anything but subtle.
Right? He should have been seeing the white horse we find later. So do you have anything else to really add about the Norma and the Nadine cotton ball conversation?
No, this is long story short, Norma becomes successful with the cotton ball thing to the point where, she owns her own business in The Return. That's all I think you ever need to talk about these fucking cotton balls.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. Good, glad to hear. But again, this is that quirkiness that people loved, right? Cotton balls. Just one-eyed patch lady yelling about cotton balls at the dude that's banging her husband, at the girl that's banging her husband.
Yeah, but I want to go to another quirk thing here too, and this will be kind of is Josie Packard gets interviewed by Harry and Cooper. I think it's time anyway. We're going to kind of around, but
no. This happens right. No, you're right. No, you're right on track because right after the cotton ball, it goes right into the Josie getting interviewed.
So here's one, Josie is in full makeup but yet wearing a bathrobe around the house. For who? Pete? Wait. Pete.
Pete. Yes, Pete loves it.
I mean, Jesus. Anyway, so Pete and, more kind of like B plot stuff here, but Cooper and Harry show up to interview her and, Laura was teaching her English. Her English is just fine. I don't know. A cokehead teenagers is teaching a full-grown woman English when she already speaks very well. Confusing, but whatever. But Cooper immediately picks up through body language that Harry and Josie are an item, which is kind of like goes to like how observant Cooper is here, but not when there's a one-armed man in the elevator with him.
Right? Yeah. No, so I brought this up too. I made the notes of this. Like, this is an ability of Cooper's, and he'll do it throughout the series. If you remember, there's a bet later about it. This is like his uncanny ability to read body language, but apparently it's only be able to tell who's banging who.
It is. Like, spoiler, the bet is they're at the diner and Norma says hi to Big Ed, and he's like, how long you been dating her?
Yep, how long you been dating her?
Saying hi to...
Right, and he knew that James was banging Laura. He knew that Bobby didn't love Laura. Like, this is what it's all about. Like, he could tell, like, this is his uncanny ability, and this is the worst case for him to be on because everybody's banging everybody, so it's taken away from his fucking focus.
So, yeah, but then we get the classic, I don't know how it happened and how nobody would even can't smell it, but Pete accidentally left a fish in the percolator.
Right.
They bring it up later. It's like, I can't get that fish taste out of you. How do you not smell?
Yeah.
It's the most obvious smell in the world is fish.
Don't drink the coffee. There was a fish in the percolator.
And he seems happy about it.
He's got the grin on his face, and then he's cleaning out and he's smelling the percolator. He's like, ooh, how does a fish get in a percolator? But yes, that's that quirkiness. And also brings up, you brought up a point there where you find out that Laura was, from throughout this entire episode, she was tutoring Johnny Horn, who was 27 years old and in the third grade.
Because he has emotional problems.
His emotional problems that run in the family. No shit. She was teaching Josie Packard English twice a week, and she was also doing the Meals on Wheels program. No wonder she was on blow. She was doing everything for everybody in this fucking town.
Plus going to high school, having two boyfriends.
Mm-hmm.
Include Harold.
Yep, and Harold. Plus, she was a perfume waitress girl.
Also seeing a therapist and Dr. Jacoby.
She had no time for anything except to do blow and run a 16-hour marathon day every day. So I brought that up. Then we get to the Catherine Horn and Ben, the Catherine and Ben fucking scene.
Can I ask, was Quentin Tarantino the director of this episode? Because we got some feet action going.
Oh, we got some hardcore foot fetish in there, didn't we?
Yeah, which is, again, I don't think it's ever brought up again. It's not directed by Lynch, so I'm just going to assume this is, you see, I got the director here, Dwayne Dunham's work.
Yeah.
Dunham, sorry, but I think you're a foot pervert.
I think, dude, I don't get it. Like, yeah, and the way they set it up, and they purposefully put like the bright red fucking, and I thought about this, I'm like, Catherine doesn't seem like the kind of person that's going to put fucking toenail polish on.
No, and she doesn't seem like the type of person who would tolerate some guy goggling her feet all night.
Mm-hmm. But they definitely do, and this is, I just wrote this down, like, this is straight up what Lynch, or what Frost, Lynch really didn't have a whole lot to do with this one in terms of the writing and things like this. It
was written by both of them, but who knows who's contributing what, and a lot of stuff you'll find out just happens on set, and they just kind of let it go. I mean, this show is pretty liberal with that, I believe.
Yeah, I do know that you're right on that, because there was quite a few things that just happened on the fly there, which seems weird that Lynch would be okay with that, but it is. But he wasn't directing everything either. But I really just put this is just put in there to make fun of soap operas. Like, this is straight up the soap opera spoof shit that they were doing.
Yeah, and we'll get even more into that, and then when we start talking about episode 3, because they do a very meta reference on not only David Lynch's previous work, but it's also incorporated into a meta TV show that is about their own lives.
Yes.
We still got, okay, so Ben Horn and Catherine are still discussing selling property that neither of them own.
Yep. The worst business people in Twin Peaks. Now, I'm going to preface something here because we're going to get into more of the lore later. But in the secret history of Twin Peaks, they talk about how these were basically the Horns and the Martells were the two people that founded the town, essentially, and made it what it was because of the mill and the lodging for the people that were working at the mill and everything that was going on. There was a mine, too, I believe. Right, Joe?
Yeah, there was I believe there was. Yeah, because that's eventually how Owl Cave is discovered.
That's right. So these are supposed to be the generational, amazing business aptitude people of the town. And here they are spending what we find out to be later millions dollar deals that they're working on here on property neither one of them fucking own.
Yeah, it is. It's very confusing. The business, I'm not a businessman, but there's some things going on in Twin Peaks here. One is selling property you don't own. And then we find out Catherine has a cooked set of books for the mill, which I'm sure comes in. I don't care. That's a lot of this C-plot story I just don't give a crap about. I mean, if you're listening to podcasts above a convenience store for the Ghostwood Estates,
the Ghostwood Estates
hot takes, but
expose.
But you're not finding it with Paul.
And I will say I am a businessman, right? I've been in sales for going on fucking Jesus Christ over 20 years of my life now. I've always had a sales job of some sort.
So Paul, is your most successful sales that when you sell an item you don't have the right to sell?
So this is something that we call vaporware, and I'm very familiar with vaporware because I work for companies where they've had me try and sell vaporware. Vaporware is where you have an idea and you're trying to sell the idea of the product and you're trying to get if people are interested in it or not. So you start talking around the idea of it, but you never make a hard sale on the vaporware. You never say, we're going to sell this product to you that doesn't fucking exist. And these two fucking geniuses are doing exactly that. He's bringing in an entire board of Norwegians, flying them in, giving them a smorgasbord to sign contracts on shit that they don't even have the deal done. Like, this totally fucks up like what was going on in the first one. What would have happened if Audrey, thank God, Audrey did fuck him up? Because then the FBI would have been involved. Like, what are you doing? Selling shit you don't own, Horn. It would have been a different show.
How do you sign $1 million contract to sell something that's not yours? Like, those have dates on them.
Yep.
And once it goes through, obviously this is property. It's going to go through the government through all sorts of contracts. That becomes public information.
Right. And then
you have to go back and see, oh, you had dealings. Well, this is insider trading. There's all embezzlement.
Well, okay, and then the cookbooks. I just want to talk about this because I'm going to give you a hot take on this, guys. Fuck it. I'm going to give you a hot take on this. The cookbooks. Okay, apparently there must have been a board of directors for the fucking Packard sawmill, all right, that Josie was sole owner of. So I don't know who this fucking board was because that is the only reason why you cook books is because you want to embezzle investment from investors into your fucking thing. So there is no reason why this dumb bitch has a goddamn cookbook because they're saying that one is showing that the mill is doing well and is worth money and blah, blah, blah. And they're going, well, one's showing that the mill fucking sucks. So you can make the argument, well, they're going to use the one that has the money so that way they could get more money from selling the sawmill. But if Ben Horn's going to buy that fucking sawmill, why are you making him pay more for it? Like, because I get the idea that they were going to maybe split the money, but at the same point, knowing business, they would have gotten a better deal had the sawmill been down and he could have bought it for pennies on the fucking dollar. Guaranteed.
Well, she tells him there's a cooked book.
Right.
This is the guy you're selling to.
This is the guy you're selling to, and you're telling him he has a cooked book. This guy's still going to get it for pennies on the dollar. What the fuck are you two doing?
See, Catherine Martell's like Mac from It's Always Sunny. She's playing both sides, and then she tells both sides she's playing both sides.
That's a type B personality disorder called called borderline personality disorder, Joe. But that's a whole nother podcast.
Okay, so let's wrap up this episode 2 because we have episode 3 to go.
Yes. So
at the end of this episode, we find out Jacoby is the one who dug up the necklace.
We find out Jacoby's the one that dug up the necklace. And what I want to say is we get more with the law lady. She asks Cooper to speak to it. Cooper won't. She gets offended. So that becomes the thing over there. We get the beating of that. Leo beats the shit out of Shelley, which we kind of hinted at.
Yeah, he beat her up because it was his second favorite blue shirt that she's lost. And it's like, dear God, like, you just know guys like that. And you're just like, Jesus, why are you the way you are?
Right. And then finally, the last thing I want to bring up too is that Laura Palmer has the vision of Bob again when she's talking with Donna.
Yes. Sarah Palmer.
Sarah Palmer. I'm sorry. Sarah Palmer has the vision, which prompts the sketch later. Okay. So yes, Jacoby, he's sitting there, he's listening to tape, and you find out he's the one that stole the necklace. So you have another red hair.
In her audio, she confides about a man the mystery man that she was seeing.
Yes. So then we get to episode 3.
Which is directed by Lynch. And you can tell because the first shot is a long establishing shot of people eating dinner. I know a lot of people love that Lynch does this. I find it interesting at times, but I like with The Return, I don't find a guy sweeping up peanut shells for 5 straight minutes worth my time.
There's a lot of Lynchian establishing and angles and framing in this episode.
Yes, which is a lot of it I do like. And it also introduces one of my favorite characters is Jerry Horn.
Oh, God, yes.
Because it's the Horn family having dinner. And Jerry comes swooping in with his baguettes.
Mm-hmm.
And they commit one of my biggest pet peeves is eating or talking with your mouth full of food. I was just disgusted with Ben and Jerry, not the ice cream tycoons. But
no, I love that. Their name's Ben and Jerry. How awesome is that? And it's paid by David Patrick Kelly, who is probably one of my other favorite fucking characters.
The Warriors.
The Crow.
Great character actor. I love David Patrick Kelly.
I love him too. He was in he was also in a video game, very early motion, full motion video game, FMV game with the girl from Indiana Jones, J.J. Walker, and Christopher Walken. And dude, it's nuts. It's nuts. It's called Ripper. If don't even play it because it's not worth playing, but just watch the YouTube Let's Plays on it. It's worth seeing it for those guys interacting together. So yeah, so you get Jerry, and this is where you find out Jerry knew Laura, and you get the first time you hear about One-Eyed Jacks,
which is a casino brothel across the border in Canada, run by Blackie, a woman. You find out it's basically she works for Ben and she works for the Renault family, who is like basically a French-Canadian crime syndicate. Ben and Jerry are eating this baguette, and with their mouths full of food, they remember these girls from high school, I believe.
It was from high school. That the smell of the baguette cheese reminds them of these girls. And I just went, wow, Lynch.
So, they got erections and they decide to go to the
strip club. And I'm going, what is that? What is that smell? Like, because I know what that cheese is. It's not the greatest smelling fucking cheese.
Was it brie cheese, isn't it?
It's brie. It's brie. And when it's heated, it's not the best smelling cheese in the world. Yeah.
And also, the skinniest guy on earth, Jerry Horn, ate 4 of these ginormous things a day while he was over in was it France or something?
Something. Yeah, I think it was
He's got
France.
like the greatest metabolism on earth.
And he just interrupts the family dinner, like drops shit on the giant table, just starts going off. Fucking Johnny Horn's just back and forth. The wife Horn, who's worthless and everything, that she's in. She's such a minor character. You see her like 4 times total. I
She
think.
does have a good recurring in the return where you actually really feel bad for her
Yes.
grandson.
Yes. But
And Johnny returns for that too.
but it's not the same actor.
No, but it's
Nope.
same actress though.
Now, the other thing I brought up too was I thought was really an interesting shot and take on it that was subtle. Was there's a dark man on the wall, and
Yes.
while Ben's talking, it is like this black shadow person is kind of hovering or over Ben, and that raised them more of that duality side of it, like they're showing an evil side of Ben Horn here.
Yeah, I noticed that too. That's brilliant framing from Lynch. Like it just fantastic the way he just kind of tells you with the visuals. Like you know that Ben is up to shady crap. We already kind of knew that, but like now he's going to a brothel with his brother, and things are getting kind of. These are just breaking the new girl, the new recruit from the perfume counter, which is a callback to the last episode where found out Ronette worked the perfume counter at Horn's department store.
Yep. So you got now Jerry, not Jerry, but now Ben Horn's in the running to being the guy that could have killed Laura Palmer. And
yes.
Just a side question. I don't have brothers, but is that something brothers do? Do you guys go and fuck hookers together?
No. At least me and my brother never did that.
I just seem like the weirdest thing to me, right? Like I'm like, that doesn't sound like a family thing that you do together. Like, let's go bond and go bang broads.
Well, given the amount of incest in this show,
yeah, there's a lot of incesty stuff.
Yes, before Game of Thrones made it socially acceptable, I guess.
That's a true story. That's a true story.
But, so they take off.
Yes, and then they go to One-Eyed Jack's and they break in the new girl, and while this is going on, Cooper is in his, and I love the portrayal of Cooper. He's just so happy in his room, tooting his fucking whistle that he
whittled a whistle.
He's whittled a whistle, and he's just like toot toot in his own room. He's like a small child when no one's around. It's amazing. Just the smallest things make him happy. And he and Hawk calls him, tells him about the one-armed man. And like, he's like,
at least somebody's recognizing the one-armed man. For crying out loud. He's wearing a bright red shirt too this time.
Right. And
attention to himself.
And the music changes. And Cooper's like, one-armed man? Oh, yeah, the one-armed man you fucking saw 2 episodes ago.
A town of 5,000 people.
Yeah, this guy's been getting out of the hospital twice now. On the unit, you're supposed to be keeping fucking covered. So
he's calling out to Harry for dating Josie Packard because he's recognizing that.
But he's not recognizing the fucking one-armed man. So yeah, and then he gets the letter and he smells the letter and whatever.
Yeah.
So we already talked about Mike and Bobby. So that's where
I kind of want to talk about Agent Cooper now. It's kind of saying this is the thing with Twin Peaks. Each episode roughly takes one day in Twin Peaks. It's not like, except it jumps a little bit in season 2 after the reveal and the consequences of the reveal. But it's roughly each episode is a day, one day in Twin Peaks.
Correct.
So it's the next day. Cooper, it is one of my favorite scenes in the whole show, is Cooper has everybody out and he's tossed rocks at a glass bottle after Harry tells him the name of a suspect. And like the whole time, like when I rewatched this like 20 years ago, it just reminded me of the book Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, where the interconnectedness of everything. So like coming up with like a cockamamie maybe scheme like this will lead him to this solve the crime. Just great. So he's like, so it's like, you know, everybody with a J, he just throws a rock, and if it breaks it, that's their suspect. I love this so much.
Right. And what I loved is he sells it to them. They're all sitting, and they all got these donuts. They're all outside, and he's telling the story about how this is a Tibetan method, and he learned this from a dream, and going and meeting with these people out there, getting just this Eastern, you know, crazy philosophy, and they all lean in at the same time, like,
Yeah, and it's great. He gives them a brief history on Tibet.
Yes, he brings out a map of Tibet. Outside, he's like, Tibet, and everyone leans in.
Now, like, if I were a cop,
go on.
The agent came, and this is how we're going to find a suspect. I'm going to throw a rock at a glass bottle. I would immediately call his supervisor because this just does not make sense. It's great for a TV show, but even in the realm of reality, it's just there's no way this actually is going to happen.
No, and what I think is so funny is just kind of like how if it tings the bottle, you make a check. If it breaks the bottle, that's our man. You know, that's our big thing. So he has everyone sit in the name and do the things. My favorite one is when they mention Johnny Horn.
Poor Andy.
Poor Andy. The rock just goes way the fuck out, right? Like and smacks poor Andy in the head.
Yeah, ricochets off a can or something.
Yeah, ricochets off a can, then a tree, and hits fucking Andy in the head. Oh my god.
And he's reassuring everybody he's fine as he's just like waddling back and forth trying to regain balance.
Yes. So I believe it breaks with Leo, right? It breaks
with Leo, but it does who was it? It
tinged on one other person. I can't.
Yeah, he threw it and it fell over, but it didn't break. It might have been.
I think it might have been James.
Jacoby. It was Jacoby.
No, it was Jacoby. It was Jacoby. Yep, it fell over on Jacoby, didn't break, and then it broke on Leo Johnson.
Yes.
So yeah, that is
more red herrings toward Leo.
And I will say, when I watched this scene as a kid, I was big into Eastern philosophy at this time. I had actually gotten a Bruce Lee book, martial arts book, from a garage sale that I'd gone to with my mom, and had been heavily reading the philosophies of Bruce Lee and everything like this. And so when I watched this particular scene and him bringing up the Eastern philosophies and things like this is probably the scene that really hooked me on the show as a kid, because I'd never seen anything like this on an adult TV show on network television, that they were even talking about things like this or even entertaining it. As an adult now, it's so comical and silly. But as a kid, like this whole thing, when this is the way they're going to do it, was just mystifying to me. And like I said, we laugh about it now, but this was one of my favorite scenes, and it still is. Like when I go back and people ask me, what is probably one of your favorite things from Twin Peaks? It's that fucking scene when they're breaking the bottle.
Yeah, I love it. Again, when I rewatched it was like shortly after I reread Douglas Adams's Dirk Gently book, and it was just like right in that whole kind of like philosophy of interconnectedness. You'll find clues are led through unconventional means. I love it. It's brilliantly done, and it doesn't like, it's not like a joke, and you buy into this. There's like, you're buying into like, oh, Cooper might be onto something with this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So yeah,
I was joking around about it, because I'm stepping out of the show and kind of applying it into the real world.
Oh God. Yeah. If this is how I decide who I was going to call during my sales days, like if this was my boss did, like here, Paul Muad'Dib, here's a rock, throw it, and whatever letter you land on, that's, sell it a name, that's your guy you're calling. I'd find a new job.
But I buy it because Cooper he's so sincere with his beliefs in this, and I love everything about how he just gets everybody's attention. Like you you brought up, everybody leans in to listen to what Cooper has to say.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's like a brief history on Tibet and the Dalai Lama and China, which is, a lot of this, I believe, would probably like hail from Lynch's interest in Eastern philosophies with TM and all that.
Mm-hmm. And I believe Lynch is a practitioner of the being of oneness. Like he
TM,
buys.
transcendental meditation. He's huge into that.
Yes, he very much advocates that. So then after this scene, we get the iconic Audrey dancing to weird music.
Yeah, which is my favorite part was like, it's just kind of like, I forget who says it, but she plays the music and somebody calls it racket, and it's just like jazz music.
This has given birth to one of my favorite Facebook pages, which is Audrey dances to various music. And I will share it with you at some point, but I've posted a couple of their posts on there, but this guy is dedicated to taking that one scene and putting in other music into it.
Oh my God.
I love this Facebook page. It kills me every time I see it. They have them dancing to the fucking dancing the Dropkick Murphys at one point, dude. It's amazing.
Oh my God. Just a slight detour, but there's something like that for Hooper's dance and Stranger Things.
Oh yeah.
Which was like kind of like the same thing, because he does that like that 38-year-old dad dance thing where he just shuffles his arms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the dance I do. Yeah.
They throw Dancing Queen behind. Seven's looking on horrified.
Oh my God, genius. Yeah. I'll have to share that page with you. It is one of my favorite pages. It's just, if I'm ever having a bad day, I go look at a couple of those and I'm feeling great. So not much else goes in that scene. Just that's one of those iconic, quirky things. But following up that scene, our hero, the favorite person to me and Joe, fucking Albert shows up, dude.
God, yes. And he shows up, just immediately just shit talks this town. Insults the receptionist, insults the whole operation, to the point where he's introduced to Harry, and before he takes off, Harry threatens, what's he say? He's like, if somebody else came in this, they'd find their teeth 3 blocks up on Queer Street, which seems like a weird, antiquated, old-timey saying I've never come across anywhere else.
My old man used to use that phrase all the time.
That's such a weird thing to say.
It is a weird, like, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s slang thing. Yeah. They find their teeth 2 blocks up on Queer Street. My dad used to tell me that when I'd get out of line. If you don't calm yourself down, your mother's gonna find you 2 blocks up on Queer Street. Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's such a confusing thing to say.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand it as a child. I just went, what? Where's
I still don't understand. But anyway, so Albert comes in and he's here to do the autopsy. He's I don't know if you missed it, but I think it was in the pilot when Cooper sends a note to Diane. He wants Albert and not Sam.
Yes.
We meet and Fire Walk with Me.
Yes.
Sam is the ineffectual. He's the doppelganger of Albert, in that he's not forward, he's not abrasive, he's kind of just really bad at his job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, played by Kiefer Sutherland, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes, and so he shows up. And he's looking at Doc Hayward's report. And he's like, "Welcome to Amateur Hour. We got an all-nighter." Like he just shits on everything, and it's fan. And you just watch Cooper's face the whole time, like shitting on everything. He's so happy.
The best part is after Harry says that, Albert walks away kind of defeated. Harry looks over at Cooper, and Cooper just awkwardly stands there and gives him the thumbs up.
Gives him the thumbs up, and I realize, I'm like, Cooper, you're kind of a shit. You're getting off on this instigation shit. Like, he totally loved it. He's like,
oh, it's so good. But Albert's now in the mix. He's going to be doing the autopsy on Laura Palmer. We'll find out in the next episode that he runs into some headaches with that, and I really love the dynamic between Albert and Harry in the show.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They're just like two forces. They're like polar opposites who eventually attain an amount of respect for one another, which is kind of, you don't see that coming.
No, you don't. And I know we're running a little bit long, but I want us to say, Miguel Ferrier, is another actor I loved. There wasn't, he was never bad in anything. I mean, even the goddamn B movie Deep Star 6, I loved him in. Anything that he was in, I also would go like, oh, he's in that? Okay, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah. I mean, I think like probably the one that comes to my mind is RoboCop.
Yeah.
Like the snarky guy who gets shot up right away.
Yes. Yeah. If I find out he's in a movie, I will, or even a TV show, I will see that, either that episode or watch it, because he's so good at what he does.
You know who his cousin is, right?
No.
George Clooney.
No shit.
I believe so, yeah.
Wow. Polar opposites fucking there. That's like Clint Howard and Ron Howard. Or, Jesus Christ. Well, we know who got all the looks in that family.
Clint, Jesus. Yeah, I have thoughts on Clint Howard.
Oh, well, we could talk about that. We'll bring you on the cast that movie one day as a guest, and you can talk about Clint Howard with us, because boy, howdy, we have. So then the next scene, I'm just going to kind of gloss through some stuff. It's Norma and Big Ed. He puts the grease on the cotton balls, which I'm just going to go through this entire plot line here. She's having a hard time with getting the silent drape runners to work. He comes in, he's all fucked up from motor grease. He drips it on the cotton balls. She blows up on him, only to love him later, because from him doing that, created the missing catalyst that she needed. Yeah. Followed up by that, Pete gets the ledger, steals the ledger and gives it to Josie.
Again, makes no sense why there's another ledger. There's 2 books.
and how Pete knew where it was, and why Josie's asking for it now, when she's known that all along, supposedly, that they've been trying to take the sawmill from her. Why now, of all times, is this being brought up? Why didn't she go to Harry when they started dating 6 weeks ago with all this stuff? It's just odd. It doesn't really work. Leland has a breakdown, which in hindsight, I think is quite brilliant, knowing how they where they go with Leland as a character.
So he starts dancing with the picture of Laura Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
And ends up busting it and getting blood all over it. And that's also, it's called back in the return.
Yes.
Sarah Palmer, but for different reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So then we get to the ultimate part of the show, the episode. Cooper goes to bed.
And he has one screwed up dream. But he already put forward, he had the dream about Tibet. So his dreams are very important to him. He uses them to detect. And it starts off with Mike, the one-armed man, talking to an audience. This part was the ending of the international trailer, but it's chopped up. It's great that Lynch was able to recycle that and put it into the actual show. Mike talks about how him and Bob used to kill together. They lived above a convenience store, which we see the convenience store in Fire Walk with Me and in The Return. We don't get any of it in this run. No. But he cut off his arm once he saw the face of God. And Bob has been killing ever since. And he recites the Fire Walk with Me poem. Mm-hmm. And we see Bob in the boiler room. But then we get Cooper 25 years in the future in the Red Room, the Black Lodge, with the little man from another place, otherwise known as the Arm. He gives some clues to Cooper here. He says that favorite gum of his is going to come back in style.
Mm-hmm.
And Laura Palmer's there. At least she looks like Laura Palmer. Doesn't she look almost exactly like Laura Palmer?
She's my cousin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is a clue.
Yes. And then he says where they come from, there's music in the air, and he starts dancing. And then Laura gets up, walks to a now older looking Agent Cooper, whispers in his ear. He wakes up from the dream, calls Harry. He says, I know who killed Laura Palmer. Yes, it can wait until morning.
Right. And he's got that goofy ass hair from all the shit he's got in him.
Yeah. That end of episode. So like cliffhanger of cliffhangers. Oh, we're going to find out who killed Laura Palmer. It's great. I love this scene. I've always wondered why Cooper never spoke backward in the Black Lodge. Everybody else does except for Agent Cooper, which has always kind of weirded me out.
Yes. So I have a couple of things I wanted to bring up on this, and I know this is your favorite scene, so I'm going to let you talk a lot about this, but a few things that I'm just going to nitpick right now because we're snarky fucks. He sees Mike, the one-armed man, in the dream, Joe. Yeah. And when he finds him later, he does not put the goddamn connections together that this guy is important.
I think it could be face blind to real suspects.
So that bothered me. I still love the line when Bob is talking, catch you with my death bag. Amazing. The fact that I wrote these notes at like fucking 11 o'clock at night when I was watching it. I wrote all these notes, and I literally have written down this. I'm a terrible person, so I apologize. We're going to get really on PC with these notes. Fucking midget talking backwards. Because that terrified me as a kid. I'm 8 years old. Understand, people, I'm 8 years old in the fucking 90s. We weren't PC back then. And I'm seeing this, and you have to understand that there's that 8-year-old child's still in me.
Yeah, it's still very jarring. Michael J. Anderson, to put it lightly, is a weird-looking guy.
He makes Clint Howard look like George Clooney. But yeah, and I used to do this to my mom. It disturbed my mom so much because again, we watched it together. That SNL did had Kyle MacLachlan on around this time to do a Twin Peaks thing, and Mike Myers came out as the one-armed man and did this really weird dance. So I would do the Mike Myers dance. I'd get down I kind of squat and I dance around my kitchen, and I would talk in tongues and freak out my mom just to fuck with her. I still do it to this day. I will still do it to this day. We were in my kitchen not too long ago, my mom's kitchen not too long ago, and I actually broke down. I squatted and I started doing the midget dance. I'm like, Mom, midget dance. So, and what I thought was weird too is that before she whispers in his ear, she gives him a kiss, which I thought was odd, and then whispers in his ear. So those are the things that I wanted to kind of talk about. I was like, oh, okay, Lynch, so there's something there with Laura and what that was. So I'm going to give it to you, and you talk about this scene.
Well, it's weird because it's called back. Lynch uses this during the reveal. We find out she whispers. She does actually whisper the name.
Yes.
I understand the kiss. She goes, sometimes I feel like Laura Palmer, but sometimes my arms bend back. This is a reference to when she was actually murdered. She was tied up that night. There's all these kind of like little Easter eggs in this that, is kind of floated out. And it's just like it creeped me out. It's still, I love it. Like anything with the Red Room will just capture my attention. But it's just so crazy. I'm trying to.
You're fine.
I love it. It's just everything about it that it gives you clues as to what's going on. But it's just like, this is such a left turn for this show at this time in the 90s. Nobody knows what the hell is going on now. You know what I mean? Like, this would be like if you're listening to the album A Hard Day's Night
Mm-hmm.
and they ended it with a day in the life.
Yes.
Just be like such a jarring left turn.
And up to this point, there wasn't really a supernatural element. Yes, Sarah Palmer was having these visions, but we didn't know what they meant.
No.
And, you felt that the killer was a real dude. And then you have this. And in the 90s, nothing like this was done. The only thing that I can even relate this somewhat to is the old 60s soap opera Dark Shadows, but that was campy from the start. This is like if you took Dynasty and then the time that JR was shot, you made it a supernatural fucking ghost that shot him, right?
Yep. It's yeah, it'd be JR gets shot and then next thing you know, Patrick Duffy is in Mulholland Drive. It's
Right.
It's jarring. It's weird. And what I love about the first couple seasons is used so sparse.
Uh-huh.
Or I think like people are suddenly intrigued. We don't get the Red Room again for a long time.
No, you don't. Like everything goes back to normal, but there's this element in the back of your mind, which I think is the wonderful hook, because you're like, what was that? I want to see that again. And it's one of those brilliant things of, sure, but you're only going to get a small amount of it.
Yeah, and it's again up to this point we're talking about like soap opera stuff, like Ben Horn and Catherine being really bad business people, and like everything's just like straight up like every soap opera you've ever seen, and then that just takes this really awesome yet weird turn of events, like where you're like, I remember watching it and I was like, I couldn't comprehend what was going on, but it was watching this like really expanded my imagination. I was like, oh, you can do stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened was like, as a kid, I really liked to draw, but
I remember that.
It was always like kind of like straight up just normal things or whatever. This is when like my drawing started becoming surreal, because it's like, oh, it is acceptable to do something weird. You can do that.
I'm not going to hide anything here in terms of my youth. I had a pretty crazy youth, experimenting and doing things, and I can really pinpoint it to this kind of unlocking that portion of my imagination, going, there are things out there that I cannot understand. and the framing, the color, the sound, it is so stark different than anything else in the show. And if you go back, and again, you could sit there, it's harder in history, but I would challenge anyone to go back to the 1989, 1990, and look at what was on TV and look what the shows were. There was nothing like that ever seen.
No, it was, this was just, I can't even imagine what the network was thinking when I'm sure they had hires up seeing these beforehand. And like, could you imagine like, hey, we have this hit show on television. Wait, what the hell is this?
I've often wondered how many people knew, because I just imagine like there are some network people that didn't know and didn't see it till it aired and had no idea this was happening. Because I can't imagine whoever did, or if it was allowed, like they're like, yep, run with it, go with it. Whoever that person was needs the fucking Lifetime Achievement Award for allowing that to fucking happen.
Oh yeah, that's when television really changed. This it's like it's not even that long. It's like maybe 2-3 minutes long, and this part just made TV okay to be artsy instead of just selling commercials. It just kind of opened that floodgate, and people were watching this when it aired, and then like we talked about last time, all of a sudden, like a few years later, you have X-Files. You have all these shows that can do different things because Twin Peaks just swung for the fences on it. Like, David Lynch, I don't care. I'm going to put this in here, cancel the show right afterwards. It's going on.
Right. And the ratings skyrocketed after that episode. Like,
yeah, people were on board.
Yeah. People were like, "What is this? We have to," because that was the cop. I mean, I remember going to school and talking to the guy that I talked Twin Peaks about, and I wonder if that put him down the fucking weird path.
Yeah.
That fuck him up. And are you and I just that fucking willful that we weren't going to let it? I don't know, but this was the cooler talk. Everyone was talking about this. There was articles in the paper about that episode. What was that we saw on Twin Peaks last night?
Yeah, and something as it shifts, especially in the 90s, something that like changed the game. It was like a few years later when, funny enough, The Simpsons paid homage to that with the Who Shot Mr. Burns episode. They do a Twin Peaks parody. That's when you kind of know that's there now. That's
in the culture. It's
in the culture now. It's there forever because you can watch. You could play that Simpsons clip to somebody and they'll automatically know that's Twin Peaks.
100%.
Watch the show. They just know that's Twin Peaks.
So to kind of cap this episode, as we talked about in the beginning and what me and Joe were going through our childhood terror, this added to this element of, holy shit, there's this investigation that's mirroring what I'm watching on TV, and nothing is what it seems to be. What killed? It didn't become who killed, or who abducted Jacob Wetterling. To me, it became what took Jacob Wetterling.
Yeah, it added, for good or bad, I think it added a lot more menace to that atmosphere, especially for me, because you see there's just these little clips of like Bob hiding behind the bed, like just weird stuff. Like, God, what is out there? What is this? What kind of entities of evil are out there? It's like, is it personified? What is this? And this episode kind of just brought that out. Like, it became much more menacing, I think, after seeing this, in my mind.
100%. I completely agreed with you. And again, like I said, I became a recluse at 8 years old from all this. I mean, I completely avoided the outside, which went against my total nature as an extrovert. Because I've always been extroverted, that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that experience, and then this show just added to everything that was, and you're exactly right. It was what is out there. What is it that this show is telling me? Because again, we've never seen anything like it. What is it that the adults aren't telling me is out there? This opened my eyes to a whole new realm of thinking.
Yeah, it also, for me, it made me afraid to even sleep sometimes.
Yeah, dude, I slept with the light on for a while.
Yeah, because like going to sleep, it's like, what am I going to find out about the world? Cooper's finding out about things in the world that's very frightening when he goes to bed, and he's a bigger guy than me. I'm just a little kid. It's just like one of those things. It just kind of, it presents a very real fear for things, but I think it's also like you start thinking about things a lot deeper. And
yes,
at that age, you start overanalyzing it in that little kid imaginative way, where it's like you can't really put your finger on it, but it's dark and it's scary, and your parents can't explain it to you, and that's probably the most frightening thing.
Right, and I will totally admit it. I'm old now. We're almost 40. I slept with the light on, I think, till I was about 12 years old from all of this. I'm not going to say just fucking Twin Peaks doing it, but,
Yeah.
From the whole experience of the Jacob Wetterling and then, watching this show and combine in that whole idea. And you're right. I thought on a much deeper level than people around me.
Yeah. I slept with the light on after this, and especially after the reveal, because the reveal to this day it traumatized me. Like, that was scary. That should not have been, like, I'm still shocked that was on TV.
We'll get to the reveal because you know my story about the reveal, and I had a worse version of the reveal than you did. So I want to say that for the actual reveal episode, because that's a story in and of itself. But that, I think, is the perfect way to kind of end this podcast, is that, well, all this real life stuff, and we're seeing this national tragedy play out, and we have FBI agents, and we're watching a show that's mirroring it. All of a sudden, the show takes a hard left turn, and these two 8-year-old kids who are watching this show, their imaginations take a wild left turn with it in the epicenter of a tragedy.
Oh yeah. I can definitely say this episode probably changed my life, and I don't know if it was for the better.
I will completely agree with you. Yeah, I'll completely agree with you. I came out, dude. It's kind of like they say, you're never the same after the first time you do mushrooms. I was never the same after being 8 years old watching episode 3 of Twin Peaks.
Same here. Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, I think this is a good end to the podcast. Joe, thank you. And we'll do the next one. We'll both put out in 2 weeks. You'll find on the Joedown. You can go to our Facebook page, which is the name of the podcast. We'll be on SoundCloud. We'll be on YouTube. Joe, go ahead and take us out.
That's it. And see you guys, and see you again in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, not 25 years.
God, please don't let it be 25 years. I'll be having a colostomy bag. Later, everybody.